what particular scenario, what likely scenario are you looking at after November 15? Sara running for president or Sara running for vice president under Bongbong?
Well, let's look at it first from the perspective of the one who gained most if you remove Sara from the equation, and that is Ferdinand Marcos Jr. So with the numbers that he is enjoying right now, why would he go for anything lower? Diba? He has already filed his certificate of candidacy, no? So why would he go for anything lower? And his numbers are quite good. Now, take it from the perspective of Mayor Inday Sara, no? She is the president's daughter, no? She ostensibly would have the support of many of her president's father's loyalists. So also, where would she go? Would she join Bongbong Marcos as vice presidential candidate to Marcos, or would she run for president herself? In which case, it will be Marcos Jr. versus Sara Duterte versus Isko Moreno versus Pacquiao, Ping Lacson, etc., and of course, Vice President Leni Robredo. No? So, sabog yung what is supposedly the pro-Duterte bloc. No? And the field gets to be wide open if both of them run for president.
Wouldn't that be better for Isko Moreno, a candidate, if both of them run for president?
Yes. If we look at conventional wisdom, yes. But then again, as I said earlier, we couldn't care less. Isko Moreno made a statement yesterday in Bataan, and he said, when he was asked the question, he said he couldn't care less about how their politics, goes whichever way.
The fact that Sara Duterte just today decided to join Malakas CMD, the party of former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, who I think at this stage is still with PDP Laban, but Malakas CMD was her party for a long time. That was her vehicle, political vehicle. What do you make of that? Joining that party of GMA, is she now a major player here, or has always been? No.
As far as GMA is concerned, she has always been the party. She has always been the power behind the Lakas. Even if for the sake of political convenience, when she was a speaker, she decided to join PDP Laban. The fact remains that she calls the shots within Lakas. No, with all due respect to Majority Floor Leader Martin Romualdez.
So what do you make of the fact that today Sara Duterte joined Malakas CMD? So does that show or strongly indicate the kind of influence that GMA still wields in the scheme of things that we're seeing now?
Oh, definitely. And I don't think that any decisions made within the next few days will not be made without guarantees of horse trading. Which means perhaps GMA, who's running unopposed in Pampanga, in the second district of Pampanga, will be assured of the speakership of the House if Sara Duterte becomes president. But I think that's the same assurance that she has gotten from Ferdinand Marcos Jr. if he becomes president.
So either way, GMA would be a winner.
That's
how you see it.
Either way, she wins. As a Speaker of the House.
Yeah, Speaker of the House. Now, of course, there are certain analysts who often describe a possible Bongbong Marcos Sara Duterte tandem as formidable, basically the tandem to beat. Do you really see it that way as a veteran political strategist? Or do you also see something that most people perhaps are not also seeing, the competing political egos and interests between those two political dynasties?
Well, both of them are fighting over a political throne. No? They're fighting over Malacanang. They're fighting over power, political power. Trono pinaglalabanan nilang dalawa. No? Now, who gets to be king and who gets to be, a princeling, we don't know at this point, no? Kasi nga parehong maganda ang survey numbers, eh. 'Di ba? Plus the advantage of Mayor Inday Sara that she is her father's daughter, and her father happens to be President of the Republic until June 30, 2022. So the likelihood of one joining the other, no, one being president and the other being vice president, would depend on purely on horse trading, on who gets what, no? Even the cabinet perhaps will be a matter of horse trading this early, no? Who gets assurances of this post and that post, no? Because nothing for candidates like them, no, who are fighting for the Malacanang throne, no, will not be a matter of negotiation. It will always be a matter of negotiation.
Okay.
Transaction.
Yeah, that's a sad part of it. It's basically transactional. But between Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte, who do you think has an edge when it comes to political leverage entering into that negotiation?
It's pretty difficult to say at this point in time which of the two, no? Except to say, of course, that because Sara Duterte has a distinct advantage in Mindanao. That's 23% of the total vote. Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has a distinct advantage over the Ilocano-speaking provinces, which they rightly or wrongly consider the solid north, and I don't believe it is as solid as it was before. But that would still be a formidable 13 to 14% of the national vote. So for the other candidates, the battleground will have to be Central Luzon, no, NCR,
Calabarzon.
Southern Tagalog, Mimaropa, and the Visayan provinces.
Most especially Cebu.
Well, Cebu is the biggest. Cebu is about
3.2 million voters, I think, registered
Yeah.
voters.
Yeah, Cebu, with its influence over Negros Oriental, Siquijor, and Bohol, as well as Southern Leyte, would be about 11% of the vote. No? With 3% is speaking Waray, and 8% is speaking Ilonggo.
Okay. Now, in terms of a solid political base or support base, who basically has it between Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte?
That's very difficult to analyze at this point in time. I would think Sara would have a bigger advantage.
And this is a solid constituency that you're seeing?
Well, Mindanao, which is 23%, you could, at any point in time now, you would easily say that of that 23%, if Sara runs for president, she gets 60% of that. 60% of 23%. So that's about 13% of the national vote. Solid.
Yeah. This question of constituency is also a segue of mine to a related question concerning your candidate now. The idea of constituency. I've heard people, certain analysts describe the idea now or the situation of Mayor Isko Moreno as somewhat similar to that of Grace Poe before in 2016, which somehow the campaign fizzled out toward the latter part, while she was the very popular choice at the start. Do you see that also somehow happening to Isko Moreno? Somehow the lack of a solid constituency that might be exposed later during the campaign?
No, when you speak of constituency, you should not just delve into the geographical constituency. Remember, with quad media these days, nothing is as solid as it used to be. No? So you're really talking of segmenting the population, not in terms of geography, but in terms of age, in terms of income, in terms of educational and attainment, and income level. I mean, all those considered. No? So you'd have to maximize a candidate who does not have a so-called regional base. No? Would have to maximize his efforts in terms of getting sectoral votes, no? Whether, as I said, income levels, no, youth, age brackets, and all that, rather than focusing on geography.
So the conventional warfare that we saw in previous elections or election cycles, you don't see that figuring that much already, or somehow as the definitive factor.
This is going to be a different ball game, all told. You cannot use an old template and use it again in 2022. It's a very different game these days, no? So you'll have to look at the strengths and weaknesses of each competitor and how you can optimize your strengths and minimize your weaknesses or your perceived weaknesses. So it's going to be touch and go every step of the way until May 9, 2022.
So
It's
for how are
looking more like, you know, how FVR won
92?
1992. Yeah.
So of course, again, after Monday, after November 15, we would get a clear picture as to the candidates for president, right?
Yeah,
So you're seeing a scenario.
competition will be. Now, the other aspect there is who would fall by the wayside. You know, in many elections, merong mga kandidato that they start that they're in the firing point at the start of the ball game, but later out their numbers dwindle. That is because people tend to go for the perceived front runners, no? Based on surveys, based on so many things. So yun ang magiging problema nung mga single digit at this point in time. I will not mention who are in the single digit. Who are in that category.
Pero hindi ba the most important first survey, would have to come after the substitution deadline on Monday?
Yeah, I think they will run their surveys after Monday, November 16 and thereafter. So those will come out before Christmas, more or less.
In this case, how are you addressing the perceived weaknesses of your candidate, Mayor Isko Moreno? The perceived weakness number one, that he's not that strong outside of the National Capital Region. Mindanao is perceived to be a weakness, even the Visayas.
Yeah, but he has the energy, which the other candidates do not have. That kind of level of energy. You know, we've moved around so many provinces over the past several weeks, no? And it's a punishing schedule, no? For instance, Cebu. Now we start at 7 in the morning. Now we're in Barili. Then have breakfast in Dumanhog. Then lunch in Moalboal. Then go to Karkar. Then back to Cebu. Meet another set of sectors and all that. No? So yesterday we were in Bataan. He spoke 5 times until 9 o'clock in the evening. No, the last was the Chamber of Commerce of Subic. No, but before that he was in several speaking engagements all over. That is a kind of energy that the other candidates do not have. No, Bongbong Marcos will cocoon himself, no, in his Aries, no, and just watch how his SOCMED trolls will run the game for him, no. I don't think Mayor Inday Sara Duterte will be allowed by the Presidential Security Command to move as much as a young Isko Moreno, even if Sara Duterte is younger by 3 or 4 years than.
How about Manny Pacquiao in terms of energy? Who could compete with the energy of an 8th division?
No one can compete with it. Yeah, no one can compete with his energy. But I wonder how long those 1,000 peso bills will last. No, I mean, because that's what he does. No, there are crowds. He gets crowds because he dishes out 1,000 peso bills to everyone. No, Mayor Isko gets crowds because he takes selfies with them, he talks to them, he pats them on the back. You know, it's a different. You can't compare those two. No.
Okay. I remember in a previous conversation we had, I asked you about why people should vote for your candidate and not for, let's say, then Robredo, Ping Lacson, even Manny Pacquiao. At this stage, I don't think I've asked you this. Why should voters pick your candidate and not, let's say, Bongbong Marcos or Sara Duterte? What advantage does your candidate have over the two?
Well, first because one, the narrative of his life, which of course is shared by Manny Pacquiao. But Isko Moreno tried his very best, despite the origins of poverty, to excel in public governance, which Pacquiao never did. No, Pacquiao, of course, is the darling of the sports world. But if you look at governance, what does he have to show? So Isko has prototypes in Manila. He can show what he did in Manila, and he can explain how he can replicate that all over the country, even escalate those kinds of projects. No, and he does. He does. He's a very good communicator. I haven't handled the candidate in my entire political life who communicates as well as Isko Moreno, especially with the masa.
How about over Bongbong Marcos or Sara Duterte, who's also a mayor?
Yeah. Try listening to Inday Sara when she relates to the people, to the public, and compare. We won't be seeing that until after November 16 or until November 16. No?
So what exactly are you seeing?
Well, I'm saying it's going to be a close fight, but I'm saying I have a candidate who knows how difficult life's struggles can be. He is not the son of a president. He is not anybody's, big time politician's son, but he has struggled all his life, and he has had a very big measure of success. So that grit in Isko Moreno will be shown throughout the campaign. And as I said earlier, when I first talked to you about at that point in time, my potential candidate, he is a listening person. He listens. He quickly grasps ideas, and he can communicate them very well. He listens.
Okay, so you mentioned the advantage, or according to you, I'm quoting you, advantage of communication, youth energy, and backstory, a compelling backstory, to which only Manny Pacquiao's backstory could only compete, right?
Yes.
But let's say, for instance, is Isko Moreno more competent than Bongbong Marcos?
Definitely. You always have to look at it in terms of being spoon-fed everything in your life. As against a person who had to struggle and knows how it is, knows how the poor people feel, how the poor people have struggled all their lives to be whatever they are. As against a person who's heir to entitlement, who has never known what it is to be poor, who has had all the luxuries and the privileges of life, of a wealthy life, and who has also no compunctions about admitting faults, no humility whatsoever. These things come out in a campaign. When you speak like you're a prince about to inherit a throne of your deceased father, those things come out in a campaign. And you can't keep fooling people all the time by saying you're going to distribute the Marcos gold, which is what his subalterns are saying over social media and even on the ground. It's so easy to puncture such balloons.
Mm-hmm.
So,
how about over Sara Duterte? Is your candidate more competent? Can you say that with full confidence that your candidate is more competent than Sara Duterte?
Yes, because Sara Duterte inherited whatever her father did. My candidate inherited a mess and turned it around within 2.5 years. That is something that you just have to communicate properly to the public.
Okay, but of course, they're saying that in the case of Bongbong Marcos, he has a solid support base. Again, inherited from his father because of the Marcos brand, which has been for so long. So in terms of strategy, you don't anymore expect to gain out of that support base. Is that correct?
Well, when you do surveys, when you do FGDs, you do all kinds of statistical measurements, you always measure it not only in terms of absolute numbers. You have to look at whether it is hard support or whether it is soft support, and how soft or how hard,
Yeah.
and how you can puncture that kind of support, how you can minimize that kind of support and hope to get that support transfer to your candidate.